Hello and welcome to my HUD Layout guide. This time I'd like to talk about how to turn your UI from this to something more organized and practical like this. The default UI can be customized and improved thankfully through the HUD Layout menu and by tweaking some settings, so that's exactly what we're gonna do in this video. The goal here is to make a somewhat clean interface with some thought behind it, giving you an easier time to keep track of everything important that is going on, and maybe even help you improve in some areas if that's what you're looking for. I'll be going over my own UI, explain each part of it for new players and where it makes the most sense to place specific things with my reasoning behind it. This way you'll be able to make a better layout according to your own preference with these things in mind. Now what you probably want to pay attention to most of the time is going to be your own character, because AoEs are happening and sometimes even mechanics which require you to move around and position yourself in a certain way. So the idea here is to place most of the important information near or around yourself, like an imaginary box or a circle. This way your focus isn't constantly shifting, letting you see and take in information faster and leaving more time for decision making. Just keep in mind not to condense things too much, or you might not be able to tell what is going on around you anymore. Also, some things can be placed differently than what you're currently seeing to be even more optimized for rating, and I will point this out as we go. With all of that said, let's start with our hotbars. 3 of them should be enough for all jobs. If you're using some macros like mouse over, pull timers or markers, you might need more than that. On controller, I'd say 4 cross hotbars are necessary at least. You can also use an additional hotbar and place your most important cooldowns inside to have an easier time keeping track of things. My own hotbars are set to different sizes for no big reason other than to get a tiny bit more space. Adjust your hotbars to a size that allows you to easily see your cooldown timers without any issues. When placing or adjusting things in the HUD Layout menu, you can hold Shift to make elements snap to the grid while dragging them, which helps with lining things up. The arrow keys can also be used to move things around 1 pixel at a time. To make this faster, you can go into keybinds and check which key or button is bound to change window size or assign one. That way you can change the size of elements faster without having to go through these settings every time. I mentioned this in my settings guide too, but when going into character configuration, Hotbar Settings and display, you can enable recast times if they aren't already for some reason and set it to centered so you can actually see recast timers. Hide unassigned slots to make the unused ones invisible, get rid of the hotbar numbers and disable hotbar cycling buttons except if they have a use for you, that is. The text of your chat window might be too big or really small when you start playing for the first time. To change it, go into lock window settings within character config. Under the general tab, the chat prompt font size can be adjusted to your liking. Font sizes for each tab can be separately changed in log details. Next is target info. First, you want to separate this element to be able to customize every part of it separately. The target info HP bar is on top of your screen by default, which is fine, but for convenience I place it more in the middle above my hotbars. The progress bar is one of the most important things to pay attention to. It indicates what your current target is going to do next, like mechanics, raid wides or tank busters for example, and it's something you usually never want to miss. I placed mine directly above the HP bar. To make this even harder to miss, you can place it right next to your character and increase its size, which I recommend especially for new players. Target info status displays debuffs and buffs that are currently on your target, like dots, target-based mitigations or damage-increasing debuffs. It is important to keep track of every now and then, especially if you need to manage dots, and this should be somewhere around the center. My own debuffs and buffs are placed right below, so everything is in one place. Status info other shows your free company buffs and your current buff timer. Since you don't need to pay attention to it all the time, it is placed in the right corner in my setup, but you can center it more if you keep forgetting about food. The progress bar shows the progress of your own casts. You need to pay attention to it a lot when playing a magical DPS or healer. Light casting is a thing too, so this goes somewhere close to the center. The parameter bar is important too for obvious reasons, especially if you need to keep track of MP as well. My own is at the very bottom under my hotbar, which is fine for me, but if you manage to fit this above your hotbar, then that's better for sure. The experience bar can be placed somewhere at the bottom or top of your screen. If you manage to finish leveling all of your jobs, then you can go ahead and disable it until the next expansion. In case you like to have different layouts, for example one setup specifically for gathering, then there are macros that let you instantly switch between them without having to go into the layout menu. You can also just assign a keybind for this. My party list is somewhat centered on the left side, which I prefer because that way all buffs and debuffs shown here are closer towards the center. Mechanics where you have to look at debuffs in the party list to figure out what to do exist in a few fights, so it helps with that too. It's also useful to have your party list closer for mouse over users, since you can probably hover over them faster this way. The limit break bar is directly under my party list. Alternatively, above the party list is another good spot I'd place it. Your job specific gauges should be somewhere around your hotbar or optimally your character. They can be set to simple mode in the settings, which removes the design and only gives you the information. This might help with taking in the information faster and can also reduce the size somewhat, giving you more options to fit this into your layout more nicely. Next is the enmity list and focus target bar, the first one being especially useful in dungeons to confirm if you have enmity on all targets when tanking. It can also be used to select a specific target with your mouse and avoid having to tap target until you get the right one. Everything else is placed more on the outside because we went over the most important things already. The scenario guide shows your current progress in the main story quest and where you need to go next. If you feel like you don't need it or completed all main quests, simply turn it off until it's needed again. Last thing I want to go over in the HUD layout are duty related elements. In order to see and adjust them in the HUD layout, you need to enable this box on the right. The duty actions are unique abilities that can only be used in some specific instances and are always very important whenever they appear. The duty gauge indicates some sort of progress specific to a fight or instance, like a special enrage bar for example. Sometimes there's some text popping up when you hover over something with your mouse like this. Its size can be adjusted in character configuration, UI settings and general. Scroll down and you can find display pop-up help and tooltip size. There you can go from standard to large or maximum depending on what you prefer. Further down you can disable the login notifications too, so you don't have to close it instantly after logging in every time. When it comes to setting up your actions for the first time, I would recommend putting the skills and abilities you use the most in Hotbar 1 and less used actions in 2 and 3. Also, in order to use the skills in your other hotbars, you probably have to bind them manually first. For this, go into keybinds again and the hotbar tab. There you can set all of your buttons for your hotbars. Now the next thing is important too and worth considering right from the start. There are basically some actions that are used by all jobs like sprint or limit break. Then you have some skills and abilities that are either the same or very similar for every job in a certain role. Try to use the same keybinds for those actions as much as possible for every job you play. Preferably assign them to the same keybinds across all jobs. This way you will have an easier time adjusting because a part of your kit is fixed and you have less things to get used to. To give some examples, I have my sprint in the same spot and on the same key no matter what job I'm currently on. My invul, invoke, shirk, reprisal and tank stance are on the same buttons for everything. Also, I try to place role-based abilities that have similar functions on the same spot. I always keep reprisal, feint and addle in the same place because they are all slightly different role-based mitigation tools with the same purpose basically. Same goes for healers, right? Every one of them has one basic damage spell, a dot, a resurrection spell and so on. So you can establish some consistency and only need to focus on the differences now. After you're done with your setup, don't forget to create a backup of your current layout and other configurations you made so far. This can be done by uploading your current data to the servers in the login screen. It can only be uploaded once a day or so. Keep this in mind if you are still making new changes. One thing that you can also do now is to import specific settings and configurations from another character, which is awesome if you have more than one. This paired with the backup function means that you hopefully only have to set up your HUD and everything else once and copy it over when needed. And that's all I've got to say about layouts in 14. I thank you for watching and until next time.